Hello grade 8s and welcome to lesson 4.2 on fractions, decimals, and percents. This is Mr. Miller, in case I hadn't mentioned that before. Okay, question number 1 here, we're going to fill in the blanks. Percent means out of 100, so 3% is really a fraction with a denominator of 100. Easy way to convert a percent into a fraction. 0.19, if we take a look at place value, this is the 10th place value and this is the 100th place value. So it means 19 hundredths. And so the 0.19 is really 19%. So what we notice here is that the decimal can be moved over 2 spots to the right in converting into a percent. If we're going the other way, we'd move the decimal 2 spots to the left. We're going to use that information to do some conversions now. We're going to fill in the blanks in number 2 to convert each fraction to a percent. So the first way we're looking at here is changing that 1/4 into a fraction with a denominator of 100. And we do that by multiplying the top and the bottom by 25, because it's 4 times 25 that gives us 100. So we do 1 times 25 gives us 25, and since it's 25 out of 100, that means it's 25%. Here's one where we can do it in 2 steps. If we multiply 5 times 2, that'll give us 10, which means I have to do the same thing to the top to create an equivalent fraction. And from here, it's easy to convert into a fraction with a denominator of 100 because we just have to multiply by 10. So multiplying by 10 will give us 60 out of 100, which means it's 60%. Sure, we could have done the whole thing in one step by multiplying 3 by 20. 5 times 20 will give us 100. We've done this in 2 steps, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just takes a little bit longer. So changing 20 into 100 as a denominator so that we can get it as a percent, multiplying by 5 will accomplish that. So if we multiply the top by 5 as well, that gives us 85 out of 100, which means it's 85%. And now a little bit of a different method here. If we take 93 out of 200 and we do 93 divided by 200, this will give us a result of 0.465. Now that we have it as a decimal, we know that moving the decimal 2 spots to the right will change it into a percent. So I'm going to do that. Move the decimal 2 spots to the right, it becomes 46.5, and now we have it as a percent. Let's move on to number 3. And in number 3, we are looking to fill in the blanks to convert each percent to a fraction in lowest terms. So first of all, 80% we know means 80 out of 100, and if we're going to reduce that fraction, we need to divide the top and the bottom by the greatest common factor. In this case, that's 20, and that will give us 4 out of 5 as the reduced fraction. Another example here, I'm going to show you this in a couple of steps because often when we have very big fractions, so the 250%, 250 out of 100, because we know percent means out of 100, it's a very big number, and so maybe your first step might be to divide the top and the bottom by 10 because you recognize that 10 will go into both of them. So 25 out of 10 is not fully reduced. We can still go another step. We can still divide the top and the bottom by 5, and this will give us 5 over 2, and now that's a fraction in lowest terms. Of course, some people don't like improper fractions. They'd rather see it as a mixed fraction. So if we were to take 5 and divide it by 2, we know it goes in 2 times, and there's going to be 1 left over. So 2 whole plus 1 left over out of 2. Okay, the whole number 2 comes from the quotient. The remainder becomes the numerator, and the divisor is the denominator here, just so you know where all the parts go. Next, we've got 12.5%, which means it's 12.5 out of 100. Of course, we don't really like fractions to have decimal numerators or denominators. So we're going to multiply the bottom by 10 and multiply the top by 10. This moves the decimal over. From here we have to do reducing, and whether you need to do this in several steps or if you can recognize that 125 goes into both of these parts, then that's fine. So that will give you 1 over 8. Now, like I said, you can do that reducing in a few steps. So, you know, if you need to take the 125 and just divide by 5 first, and that gives you 25, and the 1000 you divide by 5 and that gives you 200. So 25 out of 200 is more reduced, but of course you can divide 25 by 5, and you can also divide the 200 by 5, and that would give you 5 over 40. And then you realize, oh, whoops, we can divide by 5 again, so that will be the denominator of 8, and the 5 divided by 5 will give you 1. So 1/8 would be your final answer. You can still do it in several steps. I've just shown it here in one step, dividing by 125. Of course, my calculator, if I do 125 divided by 1000, I can press math, enter, enter, and it will reduce the fraction for me. Some of you can do that using an ABC button, and some of you may have an FD button, which means fraction to decimal or decimal back into a fraction. Check out how your calculator works, and if you're not sure how you can use your calculator to simplify your work, talk to me and I can help you out with that. Okay, moving on to part D here, we've got 0.66%, which as a decimal is going to be 0.0066. Move the decimal 2 spots to the left, which means it is 66 out of 10,000. Okay, so we've got the 10th, 100th, 1000th, and 10,000th place value. From here we can divide the top and the bottom by 2, and that will reduce the fraction down to lowest terms, which is 33 over 5,000. Question number 4 here, we've got a table, conversions from one form into another, fractions into decimals into percents, back and forth between these different forms. As a fraction, when you look at 63 over 40, some people don't like it this way. They like to say, well, 40 goes into 63 once. We've got 23 left over out of 40. Some people find 1 and 23/40 it's a little bit easier to understand because they understand that on the number line it's between 1 and 2 now. As a decimal, what you can do is take the 63 and divide by 40. And so I'm going to bring back my calculator here. So again, if I do 63 and I divide by 40, I get 1.575. Okay? Once I have it as a decimal, it's very easy to convert it into a percent because I can just move the decimal place over 2 spots to the right. That's 157.5%. If I have a decimal already, like 0.082, of course converting to a percent is easy. Move the decimal 2 spots to the right. Changing the decimal into a fraction, it's just a matter of taking the decimal completely away, just writing 82 out of, and then just thinking about place value. Here we've got 10th, 100th, 1000th. Okay, so I've got a denominator of 1000. Then I just have to reduce it. So dividing the top and the bottom by the greatest common factor, which in this case is just 2, will do the trick. Next we've got 49 out of 300. So if I do that division, 49 divided by 300, I'm going to get dizzy. No, I'm just kidding. 49 divided by 300, I do it on my calculator, and I get 0.163 repeated. And so now that I have it as a decimal, I can convert it into a percent very easily. 16.3 repeated percent, because I move the decimal 2 spots over to the right. The 0.78%, you can write it as 0.78 out of 100. Of course, we'd like to have this with no decimal parts, so I'd have to multiply the top by 100 to get 78, no decimal involved. Multiply the bottom by 100 and I get 10,000. And from there I have to reduce, so dividing the top and the bottom by 2 will give me my reduced answer of 39 over 5,000. Changing the percent into a decimal means moving the decimal 2 spots to the left, so 0.0078. 3.36 as a decimal is 336%. And 3.36, I can rate it as 336. And think about the place value here. This is the 10th, this is the 100th place value, so this is over 100. I can simplify by dividing the top and the bottom by 4, and this will give me 84 over 25. Of course, some people would prefer to write this as 3 and 9/25, recognizing that 3 times 25 is 75, and then there's 9 more that goes into 84, so that's 3 and 9/25. Now, number 5, we've got a bit of a problem here. A word problem. It says that Jeremy enlarged the picture. The length of the original picture is 8 centimeters and the width is 5. The length of the enlarged one is 10 centimeters and the width is 7. What percent is the 10 centimeter length of the 8 centimeter length? So we're doing a comparison of 10 centimeters compared to 8 centimeters, and we'd like to know what is that as a percent. So a little bit tricky here because 8 doesn't go into 100 very easily, and so we probably want to use this method of cross-multiplying and dividing by the third number in the proportion like we did in previous chapters. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 10 times 100 and I'm going to divide by 8 in order to get my percent. Okay, so 10 times 100 is the cross-multiplying part, multiplying the two numbers diagonally across from each other that we know, and dividing by the third number in the proportion. So when I do that on my calculator, 10 times 100 is equal to 1,000 divided by 8 is going to give me 125%. And moving on to part B, it's asking what is the area of each picture and by what percent is the area changed. So the area of the original picture was 8 centimeters by 5 centimeters, which is 40 square centimeters. In the enlarged picture, it was 10 by 7, which is 70 centimeters squared. So the change in area is going from 40 up to 70, and so that's an increase of 30 square centimeters. So the percent increase in area, comparing that 30 with 40 and changing that into a fraction with a denominator of 100 will give us the percent. And so now 40 doesn't go into 100 very easily, but what I can do is I can cross-multiply the two numbers that I know that are diagonally across from each other, divide by the third number in the proportion. So doing that 30 times 100 and divided by 40, again, cross-multiplying and dividing by the third number in the proportion, will give me my percentage. So 30 times 100 is equal to 3,000, and if I divide by 40, now I will have my percent. So there's a 75% increase in the area. So that's it for this lesson. Here is the homework listed at the bottom, and thank you for watching this video.